couldn't find the link at the last minute, man. And then right when I'm coming on, I don't know if you know this old Talking Heads song, on my phone was playing Totally Naked, Totally Nude. And that's how I suddenly feel. Because this morning, I had a new idea for this content today. And so I've been flying by the seat of my pants, which is both a good and a bad thing. So welcome to Yoga, Disability, and Transformation. I'll back up and get out of the sunlight here. This one is called Breathing and Disability, which I think is a really important topic, especially in the context of yoga. So welcome everyone, and those people that be watching this on recording, which is a lot of the people, a lot of the time. So welcome, and here we go. I unfortunately right now have too much in my head, right? So I hope that you'll, when I ask for comments or reactions, do it. Otherwise, we're going to be off to the races. All right, so one of the things that I think, well, I want to turn off my mail program so I don't have things beeping in here. All right, so did you know that after 32 years of practicing yoga and pranayama for a lot of that time, when I cough or sneeze, I still like do it really daintily. Like you might not even know. Like it's kind of embarrassing as a grown man. If I'm leaning back and all of a sudden I sneeze, it's like, right? No one even notices. Or if I try to cough back here, it's like, right? It takes creating a sense of direction in this body for me to be able to hack out a lunger, right? As opposed to, and I'm not trying to cough the same amount. Everything changes if I change my relationship to gravity. Okay, so one of the things that starts happening, the other thing, so like this idea that like, and you think, oh my God, sometimes when I'm feeling like, what have I accomplished with my yoga practice over my life? I think, you think I could at least sneeze better, right? For God's sakes, of all the benefits of yoga, right? And the fact is I can sneeze better or cough better if I know enough to lean forward and ground my legs and create a foundation of sensation below my lung work. All right, pause. First time I meet my yoga teacher back in 1991. So yeah, and by the way, yeah, I don't want to get too far away. So she asked me to take my arms over my head, right? And I'm, because she's thinking, I should be able to take my arms over my head. I'm just a paraplegic, right? I'm not paralyzed in my arms. I take my arms over my head and it feels like someone straps a belt right around my diaphragm and I can hardly breathe, right? Like right off the bat. And I can't believe it, that how hard it is to breathe just with my arms over my head. And I'm confronted quickly and fast with how much I can't do that. And it's nothing that she necessarily did wrong, but it made me scared that I would never get access to yoga, right? Like I could not believe it's, how could something so simple be so hard? Well, it turns out, guess what? If you like everyone, so maybe, I don't know about you, but, well, I do kind of know about a lot of you, actually. I can have a lot of people on the call, right? But like, when I take both my arms over my head and try to breathe, you should try it if you can, right? Right? So if you're watching me try to breathe here, right? Everyone take a breath, right? If I just do one arm at a time and take the other arm down, I'm giving you the template to the entire session right here, right? If I take one arm up and ground with the other arm, do you think my inhalation and exhalation is better or worse? What do you think? Well, can you see it in my body, how when I fall behind the balance point, my diaphragm is actually hanging in space? One of the things that in my situation with my disability, and you're going to see this with a couple of examples coming up here, is that me trying to initiate a breath, and you're going to see this times 100 in a video we're going to show in a little bit with Sammy, right? My ability to start the inhalation, you know, for you walking people, or if you remember walking, do you remember when you stepped off a curb and you thought it was only like a 3-inch curb, but it's actually 6 inches? And you're in that place where you're falling too fast and you kind of are reaching for the ground, it's not there yet. And that's that feeling of fright and whatever. Yes, that's often what it's like in my situation to breathe, right? Now, versions of that I see in my students all the time, right? Where that feeling of nothing underneath, not knowing where the base is actually foundational in my beginning of my inhalation, right? And so again, breathing, there's an assumption in yoga that breathing is a great default tool because it's kind of easy for everyone. First, strong claim, false. It's not easy for everyone, and it's going to depend on who's in front of you, right? Or if it's you, here's a dirty little secret I want to tell you, right? And even after 32 years of yoga, it's still true for me. The dirty little secret for yoga, if you live with a disability, is that breathing ain't so easy. It's not. And we're ashamed about it. It's like you expect that it should be an easy thing. It's not. And if we're honest, that's not just the truth about whether you live with a disability, right? Have you noticed, this is for every student of yoga and for everybody, if you live with a disability, it's not self-evident that it's easy, right? And it may never be completely easy for me. That's okay. That's what it is to live with a disability. But the other secret is that it's actually really hard for everybody, right? That I don't know if you figured this out, but being aware of your process of breathing is incredibly difficult. One of the things you're going to find out when you start, whether you live with a disability or not, is that mental awareness and breath are not good bedfellows. They're very different. And that's why you practice, right? And different styles of yoga solve that problem in different ways. Vinyasana is a beautiful style of yoga because it doesn't make the process having to be that conscious. The movement and perpetual movement of the body ensures that the breath is distributing throughout the whole system, right? And you don't have to be aware of the processes directly. Genius, right? But depending on the condition or disability I live with, I don't get access to that genius. So then what do you do? How do I practice breathing in a way that doesn't stress me out? Does anyone else get those feelings about breath? Like when you try to focus on breathing and make it this thing you're supposed to do, right? Right? Have you noticed that you always ask yourself, well, am I doing this right? Oh my God, I'm doing this wrong. What the hell? Oh no, I'm not good enough. Oh God, I suck. How can I not even take a breath? Anyone have those types of thoughts? If you don't, you're a liar. You're a lying liar that lies. This is what the process of becoming aware of your breath is like, right? And so in this part of the intro, I just want to say, if you struggle and are a little bit embarrassed and a little bit ashamed that breathing's so hard for you, and you get this idea from everyone else that it's supposed to be simple, they're lying. It's not you, it's not your experience. It's hard. So one of the really great, I had a whole bunch, and those of you who've been hanging with me for a while know that in this weird way, I've learned so much from Richard Freeman, who's an Ashtanga yoga teacher, trained as an Iyengar student, been doing it for way longer. By the way, I love this, he was the yoga teacher when he was 22 for the Shah of Iran's daughter. He was walking across the Middle East and happened to meet her, and she brought him into the compound. And that was his first experience with removing the impediments to breathing. I think there's something really wise about that. After all my years, I'm really thinking, even now lately, as I've been practicing more and more pranayama the last few years, I'm really thinking it's genius to flip that over. And it's going to be essential to finding out what your breath is relative to your situation and condition. And for those of you that are yoga teachers, or wanting to help people breathe better, whether it's your family or students, right? You need to try to help them discover what breathing is for their body and their situation, what the impediments are. Most of them are mental, not all of them, especially if they're more able-bodied, but that you need to help them grow the realization of their breath from inside out. And that's a whole different process. All right, I'm getting down a rabbit hole there. So backing up, I got this birthday card when I was 41. So for God's sake, 16 years ago, and it still makes me laugh. For my 41st birthday, I got a card that says, "The only way to live is by breathing continuously." Talk about a wonderful statement of obviousness, right? And so, but so simple and really important, right? That when it comes to becoming aware of your breath, and not just mentally, I'm going to argue today or try to present the idea that breathing should be realized not just from mind to body, but from body to mind, right? And that's really important when you live with a disability. But like when you're becoming aware of your breath, as long as your mind doesn't freak out, you're going from good to better. Okay, so by good, it's already some of you go, no, I don't breathe well, blah, blah, blah. No, if you're alive, you've already won, right? Like, so we're talking about you've already successfully got to that moment. You must be pretty good at breathing. If you can improve the quality from the baseline of staying alive, you're just getting better. And what you're going to find is in that process of improving quality, you're going to find that your mind's the biggest impediment, right? But that'll take time to discover. All right, so going from good to better. So the other thing about yoga, about breathing, not only is it a baseline and you actually already have won, right? Because you're alive. Secondly, that clearly that breath is so integral to yoga. Clearly it's really important, and it's really important for both practical and for more magical reasons. And that's why it's so integral to so many styles of yoga, I think. Um, and I think that one of the lines I came up with that I thought was so smart in preparation with this, right, for this session was, but I'm not so thinking it's smart anymore. Um, that breathing occurs at the intersection of practical and magical, because we know on some level as yogis, right? As yogis, we know that somehow we can sense that breathing touches the intangible part of our nature. So somehow it connects a knowable process, one that we take for granted, and it connects it to this sense of expansiveness and grandeur within our experience. And so somehow through breathing, you get the introduction of movement and the possibility of control. Kind of, it's not really control, it's about that is removing the impediments. The possibility of control, which unfortunately pranayama is usually defined as breath control, right? The possibility with control with this sense of something deeper and more ethereal. It yokes something together at a crucial intersection. It's magical. Now, what that crucial intersection or what that crucial intangible part is experiential, and it can be cashed out. So now I'm going to switch to some words that maybe seem, I think they sound a little self-important and like it's technical and therefore it must be more real, which I don't know about you, but if words get more technical, they're actually usually less real. In my opinion, that's what I find a lot about the science technology, the science vocabulary. However, all right, so let's talk about what breath actually, how it's a practical intersection, right? So one of the things that's really unique about breathing, and we're still moving back to disability here, but one of the things that's really unique about breathing is that it's an involuntary process. You don't have to be aware of it. The level of your nervous system will ensure you continue until you're dead, right? So it's involuntary. It's at the core of your ability to survive, right? So that's one thing. But it's one of the only involuntary processes that we have some voluntary control over. So one of the ways that I describe yoga is the yoking together of what you can feel and control with what you can't feel and can't control. Now that line, many of you have heard before from me, but that line actually is why I think adaptive students and people with disabilities are actually better yoga students than traditional students. In many cases, it's because they're continually confronted with what they can't feel and can't control. And any honest traditional student is confronted with the same problem. I don't mean honest, I mean truthful. Like if you really get truthful about it, there's a whole bunch of things you don't get to control in a yoga pose. And you have to ride the wave of what's happening, right? So this idea that there's a part of this that's involuntary is exactly why its intersection is so crucial in many styles of yoga, because you're in not metaphysically, physiologically, you're in a process in the configuration of human being that is involuntary and essential and voluntary and can be influenced by the mind. So it is one of the crucial intersections of human consciousness, right? So it's important. The only way to live is by breathing continuously, right? Secondly, there's research out there that talks about in your involuntary part of your nervous system, right? That breaks into two different parts, right? So I'm not that well versed in this, but There's the sympathetic part of your involuntary nervous system, right? Which is the fight or flight thing, the startle thing that lets us survive and run from tigers, and why we quit inhalation on a startle. We don't exhale. You know, people in stress do that. They take things in, they don't let things out. People that have been traumatized tend not to exhale enough. Okay, so there's the fight or flight part of the involuntary nervous system, and then there's the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the for oversimplifying, like a calming, more quieting part, and it's about the balance between the two. So it turns out that there's research out there that says if you become more aware of your exhalation, you activate the parasympathetic sympathetic part of the nervous system, right? And that's part of why. And if you can like be aware, come aware of your exhale and soften your organs of perception, right? Things like that, that you actually are doing something really important, right? And so like makes sense that one of the limbs might be meditation, right? So you start thinking about how these things all go together. So part of the point is that breath, you're literally accessing a really integral part of your nervous system, both sides of it, the ability to take in energy and have it be a spark of life, and the releasing energy, right, of exhalation. And so by becoming more aware of your breath, you're literally and figuratively and magically experiencing not only more of your nervous system, but also one of the keys to self-realization. And both stories are true, right? And so so when I said these technical terms that sound self-important, maybe you believe me now more because I said parasympathetic, sympathetic, voluntary, involuntary, autonomic, and control. Subtle. I could use all these words. And what's important about this is that know that more of you comes together than you know when you breathe. So contrast this voluntary part of your of breath control, right? And with the involuntary part, and contrast it with digestion. Digestion is something that it's very, I don't actively with my mind get involved with my digestion. I'm not moving it through, creating the chemical changes that break down the food in my stomach, that the peristalsis, that, the stuff that moves it through me. Like, it's a good place not to have it be voluntary. I would hate to have to consciously digest my food all the time. It's hard enough for me to chew my food enough, right? This is one of the places where my mind doesn't want to be. And breath provides a whole different universe because it's got both. All right. So it is essential. It touched something intangible, right? And it gives you access to not only a tangible part of your nervous system, but I suspect, and this is where I'm trying to stop this presentation from going, I suspect that it's our autonomic nervous system that's more directly connected to the universe. And that's why traumatic injuries are so intense. They actually start to injure your direct connection to the universe. And they throw you into fight or flight, right? But so the idea that breath is going to be a way to touch a whole bunch of spaces is really important. And it's something that if the mind can learn not to freak out when it's being aware of the breath, you got a really good thing. And now let's think about disability and that how does the body, so I'm talking about disability more right now in terms of physical disability. how does the body help the breathing? So keep in mind that when I lean back behind the balance point of my sitting bones, I can't cough as well. I don't sneeze as loud. When I'm off balance with both my arms over my head because I'm paralyzed, right? Because I don't have abdominal control. When I'm off balance, my inhalation becomes more violent, right? I'm not able to continue the breath to any type of fullness. If you tell me to take a deep breath, my body, when both arms are over my head, you're going to be asking me into violence. And chances are I'm going to follow you because I'm going to think I'm supposed to, right? So, and even when you're the idea that, oh my God, if I could just learn to breathe up here, if I could just learn to breathe better up here, I'd be a better yogi. False. False. Figure out what it means for you. All right. So I want to turn, Bethany, you about ready with Sammy? So I want to tell two quick stories. So we've had pivotal students in we learn so much from our students at Mind Body Solutions, I can't even tell you. I could go on and on and on, right? There are two students I want to talk about, one of which I want to show a video. One was a guy that came around our radar, Bruce Kramer. He died of ALS. Been longer than I can remember, but it seems like it was the other day. He was someone, if you know anything about ALS, it basically does a lot of things. You can't move, a whole bunch of things, but basically the ability to breathe gets worse and worse. And you basically usually die of drowning in your own fluid in your lungs because you're not letting the water out through your mouth, basically, through your exhalation. And so Bruce was an incredible learning experience for our core staff, because as he got more and more symptomatic with ALS and toward heading, and by the way, he wrote a book called We Know How This Ends, and he's on Minnesota Public Radio. There are all these amazing interviews with him about his story with ALS. But like as a staff and as a core teaching group, trying to help him get as much quality out of the breath that he could get. So the medical model would tell him deeper breaths, deeper breaths, deeper breaths. Keep your lung capacity, keep it in terms of oxygen, right? That's important too. But we were trying to help him realize how to have as much quality over in the oxygen exchange he was having. And that ended up being by having assistants help him move his body while he was breathing in the way that he could, as opposed to always having him focus on getting more breath, right? It was about getting mileage out of learning how, if he can't come forward, right? Like if we could include his body, not as a support of his breath, his body as breathing beyond his lungs, right? Beyond his ability to inhale and exhale. That's huge. The body breathes. This is going to be really important in when you're living with your own disability or helping someone breathe with disability, is helping them realize, even though their body is a struggle, or having the student realize, even though their body is a struggle, the whole body breathes. And that's something that's taken me years to be able to say and realize with confidence, because it doesn't make sense to my mind, except it does, right? All right. So the other student that we're going to show a video of right now, and then we're going to launch off into more practical breathing. I don't want to teach too many techniques today, but we're going to practice, but not just breath awareness. We're going to think about what are the sensations required to remove from body to mind that help the breath happen. And this is what you're going to see in Sammy. So Sammy's a student that I remember when she came to my classes in the Curd Center back in, I don't know, a long time ago. I don't know, 20 some years maybe, or I don't know, a long time, right? She's a high level quadriplegic. And anyone that's actually, Sammy would come to our trainings. She's been in some of our early videos, which are in our video library, by the way, including this one that's about to be shown, which was paid for. We made a series of videos because the Reeve Foundation actually gave us money way back when to make these videos. But Sammy, anyone that got to work with Sammy as a teacher in our trainings, I'm telling you, more than anyone else I've ever seen, she directly and deeply affected anyone that came into contact with her, because you learn something about breath. One of the many things you learn something about breath that I am still processing. So you're going to see a video about her and what she says. And it's going to be a video where Amy, and we're all younger at this time, Amy and one of our former teachers, Andy, are working with her, and it's Sammy that's talking and doing the voiceover. Okay. And so one of the ways Sammy came and wanted to, when she was first injured, she was body surfing in San Diego and got rolled by a wave and broke her neck. High level quadriplegic. When she came to our class, to our classes at the Curd Center, she was really maybe not going to survive. She was really in a rough spot, not just psychologically, but physically too. And you could barely hear her speak. And over time, we found out that she at first wanted to be a school teacher, but never thought she had the voice projection in order to be able to speak loud enough to be a teacher, right? And so one of the things that over time, and we're working with her, and you're going to see some of the quick little snapshots of the way we worked with her, that she would get more auditory, louder with her voice when she did yoga. And one summer to write Waking, I took the summer off, and by the end of the summer, her mom said to Sammy, you got to get back to yoga because I can't hear you talking anymore. She didn't have enough breath. She couldn't, she was only, right? All right, so here's the video. So watch, and then we're going to start going into more yoga. That's Bruce, by the way. There's Sammy.
When I receive this adjustment, I'm able to feel my back body more, and I'm able to feel my sit bones on my cushion. It also helps me open my chest and feel like I can breathe a little lighter.
Watch her neck.
When I receive the light reference on my feet and ankles, it helps me connect to the base of my footrest and feel more grounded. When I receive this adjustment, it helps me feel my knee joints and my hip joints, and again helps me feel grounded into my wheelchair. The block between my knees helps keep my knees and my hips in good alignment. It also helps bring relief to my hip joints and lower back. As I receive this adjustment, I feel properly aligned. I try to breathe as I receive the adjustment. It helps lighten my breath, and my spine feels more aligned. When I'm in this position, I focus on feeling my base by grounding my feet to my footrests and my butt bones in the chair. The light touch on the back of my heart helps me lift my chest, and I breathe. As I'm doing that movement, I focus on grounding my feet and my butt, and as I lean forward, I lift my chest. And while there are physical actions going on, I can also feel my inner body more. So when I lay down and take my arms and legs wide, I get that feeling of space in my body that I don't get when I'm stuck in my wheelchair all day. Just the openness of my chest and extending out through my fingertips and my toes lightens my spine and helps me breathe better. When I receive this adjustment, I'm able to stretch out both through my legs and through my arms out more, starting at the core of my heart and kind of radiating out like a sun. This adjustment helps my spine feel more aligned and helps open my chest. And as they slowly release the adjustment, I try to stay present and hold the alignment and openness. When I receive this adjustment, I get a sense of immediate relief all down my spine. Because of my scoliosis, my back likes to curve to the left. So the light adjustment on my right hip and my left ribs brings me right into alignment that I wouldn't be able to feel by myself. And again, when he releases, I try to stay present and remember how it feels. As I started doing yoga, I found there were movements and positions that reminded me of when I was younger. And one of the ones that I like the most is the rocking, because it reminded me of what it was like to be a little girl and swinging on the swing sets. Just to be able to feel that rhythm again, which is something many of us that are disabled have lost. After we're done with the rocking and we put my legs down, just that light reference on my legs helped me lengthen again. And I'm able to feel the hum of the energy moving through my inner body.
We're going to go.
So let's just pause for a second, because I need to. And if you were letting in what she shared with us there, right? She's not heroic because she became our student. But I'm not going to waste what I learned. I'm going to honor what was there. And I hope now, tag, you're it, right? Tag, you're it for your own experience. That's an extreme experience, right? And Bruce is an extreme experience, right? Don't get lost in the extremity of her experience. You got to figure out what breath means in your body, right? And grow it from there, right? So there are things to learn about from that video. And by the way, that video and 630 others are in our queue on the Video Hub. So just so you know, there's treasure troves. They're not all public, but there's a treasure trove of content, right? And so I'm going to start from the idea. So a whole bunch of things. One of the things, I'm trying to find a line that I fell in love with before. before I came across Sammy's video this morning, by the way. How could that not change everything I have to say when I watch that video again, right? And that's why we're so grateful for all of our students, more than you know. Um, but one of the things that, back to some of the mystical parts of breathing, right? One of the things, not only does that connect you to more of yourself, have you noticed when you breathe well, right? Have you noticed that you also feel more connected to the world around you, right? That it isn't just that you feel your own lung stuff. Something else happens that's beyond our ability to capture in words, but something else happens, a certain type of connection and unity with the empty space that surrounds you, and then also trees and people and puppies and kittens and stuff, right? All those things start to happen on breath, right? And what's really important about breathing is that it makes you go in, but it connects you to what's outside, but from inside to out, not from outside to in. So when you're telling me as your student, or if you're whatever, just consider me your student for a second, to take deep breaths, or that quantity of breathing is more important than quality of breathing. You're trying to show me from the outside in rather than from the inside out. So another thing I want to draw attention to the video in Samuel, when I said, watch her neck. Did you see how incredibly developed her scaling muscles are in her neck? She has no leverage. She's literally and perpetually in the 6-inch curb when she expected a 2-inch curb. And the only way she knows and has muscular control to get the pivot point to start her inhalation is by gripping her neck. So when we're doing those adjustments, and this is, by the way, where I think, and this is a whole thing for a whole other day, this is where I really think that it's a mistake in adaptive yoga when you're in person for there not to be hands-on stuff. Because did you see, like, for example, when she said, God, she's so articulate in what she's describing, right? When there's one hand on her rib cage and one hand on the outside of her hip, and she talks about how the breath changed. No matter what I do for words, she does not get to experience that unless Andy puts his, or was it Amy, I'm not sure which one, put their hands like that to let her have the riverbanks of her body so she can feel the direction of the flow, right? Like that is so little, they don't have to be big adjustments. They're not corrections. They're trying to show her the edges of her own riverbanks so she can feel the direction of the movement. Didn't you love, if you know anything about sun salutation, like her little version of sun salutation right there, as she was doing this and back? And she never gets to move like that on her own, right? Now, if as she's experiencing that, do you think I'm instructing her to pay attention to her breath? F no. I'm wanting her to feel it in her body first, right? I want you to feel it in your body first before you start trying to impose your mind's expectations, right? One of the greatest impediments to breathing is the mind's projection of expectation. Once that happens, the river gets all broken apart, right? And so what we start to do with those adjustments is we start to show her that she gets something underneath the beginning of her inhalation, right? She gets sensation from below. So the inhalation doesn't have to start from her neck, right? It can actually start as a wave, right? That she gets to have the reference and the river, that the body shows direction for the breath to follow. That's what's so genius about vinyasa and yoga. The body provides the direction. Now think about that literally, right? Like the body actually provides the direction in the movement, but it also, by the way, do you know that your blood is oxygenated by your lungs? And so it's not, it is literally that your whole body is breathing and receiving oxygen, because the blood flow in vinyasa and yoga is making sure the blood's going out to the edges, right? So there's literally an exchange happening through your tissues because you're moving, right? And so the movement, so imagine yourself talking to a large group, trying to fill the room, but you're laying on your back. Can you imagine? Can you just feel how exhausting that would be? To project your voice while being off balance, being in this position. I'm telling you, if everyone lean back, right? If I have to talk all day in this hour and a half from this position, my diaphragm is going to get punished. As you see people in wheelchairs tipping back all the time, their diaphragm's getting punished. It's losing connection to their legs. So one of the most important things we could do for Sammy was to push on her knees, to articulate her femur bones back so she could start to feel. And then when we got her to move in the sun salutation, she got to actually have the body create the direction, not just her scalings, right? And she got to like feel what it is to have the body provide the direction for the breath, rather than a violent action at her scalings, right? What's amazing about Sammy as a student, and all of you as with a little bit different conditions, is that Sammy only got to feel it maybe once a week or once a month. And she had to remember the whole time. She still has to remember, right? One of the things I was so happy about is I saw her mom donated $250 to Kiss My Asana, because her mom still knows and was witness to what Sammy got. She's working at Target, by the way, and she's like works on their data analytics, and she's in her life. Yeah, she's awesome. She's magical. All right. So now we got to start the practice or something or other. Before I do, I've been talking straight, and I'm right. But can you see? I hope you can feel. Ask yourself, after watching the video and my long-winded words, pause for a second and register what you received. You probably don't have words yet. You might have words. I'll ask for reactions or comments in a second. I wish for you the strength to be changed. I wish for you to learn when you don't know exactly what it is you're learning, but you can feel it. Right? This is what sets a yogi on his or her path. You feel the truth. You don't get to know what it is. You don't get to study it. You have to live it. Anyone have any comments or reactions before we jump on forward into stuff? It's hard, right, to know what to take in? Me too. Seeing Sammy again, still weeping about it. not because of her, because of what she taught me. So grateful. So grateful. Gotta honor it, right? Right? Gotta honor it. All right. So no, anyone writing in chat or anything? Anyone? Group? All right. I guess you're not overwhelmed by the droning.
I think Marianne is trying to ask a question.
Okay, good. Because otherwise there's going to be more droning of this voice that never stops. Marianne.
I didn't really have a question, but I wanted to comment. That was one of the most powerful videos I have ever seen. And I agree 100% with your comment. I've been fortunate enough to work with Morgan Thomas, which you know. Fortunate, I've been doing adaptive yoga with her for quite a few years now. And that was one of the terrible tragedies during the shutdown. Nobody was allowed in, is the inability for me to get my hands and to touch people.
Yep.
And so many of the movements that I saw you doing is what Morgan, my mentor, has taught me to do with our adaptive students. And it's so powerful. And there's not words enough to describe what it does without seeing it. But Samantha summed it up so beautifully and so eloquently. And I mean, I had tears. I had to, stay off the videos. I'm cleaning my face, watching her. Just what a woman.
I agree. And that's, there's going to be a whole section in the content that's coming online I'm going to keep interviewing students, and to get there, when they do the words right, they're better than anything I can ever say, right? That's why your stories, you all matter. Your stories actually matter. For the lion's story matters more to transform the hunter, right?
Absolutely.
Not what the hunter is supposed to do. All right, Mary.
What I wrote in the chat was deep compassion, and there are no words, but I just felt so deeply in my body listening to her, but also watching her. It's so nuanced, and the part that I think really moved me was when she smiled. There was a time where she was smiling, and that smile was so deep. I think it was when she was doing the rocking.
For sure it was.
And just again, I think about the profundity of her story of being a surfer. And here she is having that experience of rocking. I thought that she was gonna make reference to the water, but what I experienced is that she, I don't know, it was just, thank you so much for sharing.
Sometime we should have video night of some of our content, right? That's on those, because you're not going to believe what's in some of those videos, right? And one of the things that she referenced and I think she said it in the video, but that was like swinging in a swing for her, right? That like the flying feeling that she got from rocking reminded her of swinging in a swing. And so it's like, well, and I remember the moment she said that at Curd Center, I was forever changed, actually. All right, Pammy, and then we should move on.
Yes, I just wanted to, I'm grateful for so many things today, but most of all, like the mental block to breathing, and the fact of the line that you said, that the dirty little secret about yoga is that breathing is easy. So many times I've worked, in populations with PTSD and physical disability, and even in my own body, I notice all the time that we say, sometimes the teacher will cue, if you can't do the pose, just breathe. But it's not that easy. And so noticing where your catch is, and I'm just very grateful that you brought that umbrella over all populations for that, rather than just thinking physical disability. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I remember when Joe, my teacher, and I were trying to figure out what the right instructions were for me, you know, given my different situation. And the answer was they're exactly the same as if I weren't disabled, right? And so it is the case that what a person with disability confronts at the core when it comes to breathing is similar to what everyone confronts. It's just more obvious. So, right, and more up in your face. But, you know, so it is the case. And that's why we tell you, when we train teachers, we tell them the greatest commonality between you and your students is your practice. If you're honest about what's been hard about your practice, right, then it's different. Like what I struggle with in breathing is different than what Sammy does, is different than what someone with cerebral palsy does. It's different than someone with a traumatic brain injury. But there's enough similar that we can help each other. It turns out that experience in asana tends to converge, right? There's enough of the core. Our culture right now is really about celebrating, and rightly so, all the differences and appreciating everyone's different experience. But it is the case that the core of it's a lot shared. So you have to somehow have the confidence to know that the core of breathing and its struggles is shared by everybody. And that's the starting point of you understanding how to share it with others. And it's not just people with disability, you know, it's people that think breathing's stupid, right? Right. Even though it's the only way they still have. All right. So I didn't mean to, if anyone does have a comment, just write in the chat, and Bethany or whoever can like interrupt me, and we can go on. So a couple things about breathing. Like, so there's this tendency, I've already said, you've already won because you're alive, right? And so you're going from good to better. This is incredibly important when it comes to breath awareness, right? I hope you get from Sammy that the body has to be an integral part of breathing, right? And that the breathing without a sense of direction is exactly why Sammy's scaling muscles in her neck were so overdeveloped. It's her only controllable resource. By the way, that Sammy was able to be off a respirator with her injury being so high was actually quite an accomplishment, right? So she already is a winner of the chicken dinner, right? Like she already won, right? And so, and then the idea that with students and with yourself, you should focus first on quality breathing and let the quantity of your breath take care of itself as a consequence, right? What you're going to be horrified about is that quality breathing. So if you're a really truthful pranayama student, where you're actually just focusing on breath, which I don't necessarily recommend with disability, but that's a whole other thing, right? If you're just in a pranayama practice, if you're a really truthful student, in a half-hour pranayama practice, if you have 3 or 4 good breaths, you've had a home run practice. That's the truth. That's part of the dirty little secret, right? Is that quality breath, even a good quality breath, when your mind's being super attentive of the process, right? That's really hard to do. That's why mental awareness and breath aren't good bedfellows. That too much awareness inhibits the river. Too much mental awareness inhibits the river. So if you can show some breathing from body to mind, you've got a home run. Notice also what Sammy said about, then I can feel like I feel space in my hips and back, right? That was a huge line. Go back and watch the video and listen to her lines, right? Is that the sensation of relief and the sensation of lightness and the sensation of space are integral to quality breathing. right? And so what we're in those adjustments that were very light, they weren't corrective. We weren't trying to untwist her scoliosis. We're just trying to give her enough reference so she could feel relief, so the relief could distribute the breath, right? As opposed to her attempts to fight for it, right? So this idea you get in a three-dimensional example, what it means to remove some of the impediments. For Sammy, it meant boundary, grounding. Guess what? That's not just for Sammy, right? So notice that in Shavasana, relaxation pose, typically the instructions are out the body first to find the nourishment of Shavasana. Often Shavasana is a precursor to a focused breathing practice. It's because you use the body to find the hum, and then how the hum receives the breath, right? And the hum receives the breath not because the mind's aware of it, because the mind stops judging, stops infusing judgment into the, injecting judgment into the flow of the river, right? The mind doesn't know how to sit there and relinquish its injection of judgment, right? And that's part of what that's why when you just focus on breathing, it's kind of hard, right? All right. So the other question is like the idea that, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Well, let's revisit that question for a second. What does that question even mean? You're not doing something wrong. That's your mind trying to that's your mind expressing fear, right? I hate to tell you that mostly your mind's afraid of your breath, especially where things are really quiet, right? Your mind actually is afraid of the quiet. So yoga trains your mind to be non-judgmental. It aims to be a pure observer of the happening of breathing. Now, that's way easier to do from body to mind than from mind to body. Okay. All right. So, like, for example, should I breathe more through my nose or my mouth? That'd be another like beginning question, right? I don't know. The answer is you should try them all. Let's do it right now. So here's what I'm always going to tell you, because my yoga teacher told me this. If you think it's this or that, try them both and decide for yourself. You know what pisses me off when I ask an either or question? What pisses me off about either or questions is that when I practice both, I find out that both are right. Right? So I don't get, my mind doesn't get the certainty of knowing one or the other. It's that they have different purposes. So have you noticed that elderly people tend to breathe more, do more mouth breathing? Right? There's something really easy about breathing through the mouth. It's less inward. So now take a breath in through your nose. And then out through your nose. I don't know about you, but I hear more quiet, right? It's slightly more inward. Now breathe in through your nose and then out through your mouth. Isn't the outward exhalation part of what happens when you finally get relief? If I want to make it louder, I have it go out through my mouth. If I have to let it be rather than as big, out through the mouth makes it slightly bigger, in through the nose and out through the nose makes it quieter. But maybe there's a current underneath and not through the nose, right? So And now, so let's try it again. Into the mouth, out through the mouth. That's how you breathe into a stethoscope, right? When a doctor is trying to check out your breath. It also gives you confidence that you are in fact breathing, right? So now into the nose, out through the mouth. Totally different sensation. Now into the nose, out through the nose. If you can, doesn't matter. They're just different sensations. Do you notice that maybe when you breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, there's a slight extension of your spine? As opposed to in through your nose and out through your mouth tends to slightly compress your spine. These are the things you get to explore. Can I breathe through my nose and out through my mouth and not compress my spine? Absolutely, with practice. Now, I don't even want you to try this last one because I think it's so wrong, although there are some pranayamas that try to do this. You could try to breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose. I find that if I do that too much, I get nauseous because it's so backwards for how I know to breathe, right? So I wouldn't practice that one too much. But my point is that all of them are different sensations. They're all going to have different effects. There is no right and wrong here. There's just different breathing. And you're going to find over time, most likely, that most asana will go in through the nose and out through the nose, right? Unless that's not available to you with ease. Because if you are creating dis-ease in a pose because you're trying to breathe through your nose or out through your nose, you've screwed up the pose. Now, it doesn't mean that things can't change. You'll get better over time at breathing through your nose. There are complicated poses. Like the thing I try to say is like, when you're lifting weights, you don't just want to go in through the nose and out through your nose, right? When you're hitting a tennis ball, anyone remember Jimmy Connors and all the grunts he would make on the court, right? When you're really exerting, it's really satisfying to breathe out through the mouth, right? So it's like there are times where you're not going to want to just be in and out through your nose. There are times you're going to want to be in and out through your mouth, right? There are times, I very rarely find a time where I want to go in through my mouth and out through my nose, right? But God knows, it's for you to figure out, right? So what are the other sensations? So as hands were going on Sammy, what are the sensations that I need to have in the body that I have in order to have the beginning of my inhalation start with ease? So what you saw is that Sammy didn't have a way to start the inhalation very well. She had to initiate it from her neck. So for her, it was really important to get her a sense of rhythm. So the rhythm started her inhalation as opposed to her neck, right? So sit up straight and tall. You don't realize it, and we actually could get Sammy to feel this, but there's a very slight gripping in your very low abdomen when you start your inhalation. There's a grounding that happens really down low, the lower diaphragm, right? And you may not have known that, but it's there, right? So she can't get access to that, especially, by the way, lean back in your chair. It's very hard that the more you tip back, the more your inhalation starts from your upper chest, right? You can't get the leverage the same way, the grounding point, right? So, which is interesting, why sitting pranayama is ultimately gonna be better than, not better maybe than, but I still practice lying down. So now if I come forward, right, Okay, so if I can create the grounding sensation, so everyone put your hands on your knees. Right? Here, push back. And notice your chest wants to lift, right? Can you feel that? And then release, right? Follow the grounding sensation to lift in the chest. So this type of coordination for someone like Sammy and for you, the grounding sensation, the input in, the lift of the chest, now include your breath. And then back out. So already we're practicing breath as a wave, right? Here comes in, the chest lifts. I naturally want to inhale. And then release. Now everyone drop your chest way down. And now, don't do this really, but you can maybe do it if you don't. If you are really in a hunched over position and try to take a really deep breath, it kind of sucks, right? Right? Space is gonna matter. And that's what Sammy was talking about. Space is gonna matter. So right now I'm creating space in my spine by pushing my forearms down into my legs here a little bit, making that contact with my hands, being forward on my sitting bones, so I have direction. And then lifting my chest as I inhale. And then exhaling and dropping my shoulder blades. Now then just notice, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Something's different there, right? One's not right, one's not wrong. They're different. So Sammy was never getting to a forward position when she was breathing because her chair had to keep her safe, right? So that was part of it, okay? So space in your low back. So this is like, for those of you that come to my class are gonna know that I do stuff like this every time in a class, right? I know, and that was one of the, if you raise money for Kiss My Asana, you got a thing on space and lightness. Like as I lean forward here, I'm just creating space in my back. So lean forward, hit down through your sitting bones, lift your chest, right? Literally elongate your spine a little bit. Because the space is the intangible part of your consciousness. And breath can touch space. Good, and then release. So now when I've got more length, the sensation of length in my back, when I come back to here, I want to keep the imprint of space in my back and let that sensation of space, feel my sitting bones, my feet, but let the sensation of space help my inhalation. And then have it come back to the center. You return to the midline on exhalation. The midline expands on inhalation. You come back to the center of the midline into action on exhalation, right? Now, what that looks like in your body, I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's true, right? So you've got to find what it means in your body, right? So now if I want to take advantage of the inhalation as part of my movement, I'm going to get an anchor, ground my sitting bones, maybe touch on my knees, right? Right? Inhale and take my arm up and make the whole movement be coordinated. Have you ever had anyone say, like a massage therapist or whoever, breathe down into your legs, for example? Have you ever heard weird shit like that? Right? As if that'd be obvious how you do that. And then you want, so I'm just going back and forth because now I'm just like, I'm talking and I'm just wanting you to feel what happens when my breath and my body. So what I want to say, it's not just I'm using my breath to help me raise my arm. When I raise my arm, I'm breathing with my body. Right? That's what Sammy wasn't getting. That's why she loved being on the mat and having her legs wide. She started to realize, my God, why do you think she smiled? Right? It's because she started to see, you mean my body and my whole body and not just my neck actually is breathing? Yes, that's exactly right. That's part of how asana teaches breathing, is that you start to realize that it's not just that you're trying to coordinate. So I'm breathing, even if you hold your breath and do this, I'm still breathing, just with not oxygen, without an input of oxygen, right? Like the whole body's breathing, right? So I'm trying to get space in here, grounding in here, expansion in here as the conditions to maximize the quality of my breath. Because once I light up the hum, as Sammy said it, right? Once I light up the hum, it's whatever breath she's getting, whatever breath Bruce was getting, can touch her whole body. And it does not require her will. You could not have a more obvious example of will and the will to survive than Sammy's scaling muscles. Okay? Unbelievable endurance. Every single breath, in order to start her breath, she's using an extraordinary amount of will. Okay? So if I can create any kind of ease while she's breathing, I'm distributing the prana through her body. So she gets to have a sense of direction in the breath, as opposed to having to push it, right? And so the movement of the body becomes integral to some spreading my legs right now, right? Because I want to get this same sensation now with a larger base. So now I'm moving forward and back. I'm just preparing for good breathing right now, right? So I'm getting the rhythm changes, the base change, the rhythm change to help me wake up my pranic space, right? My pranic space. So I can come back to my midline, bring my legs back together, have all of me be part of my next inhalation and exhalation. Can you imagine Sammy's having to wait a week or a month to have that imprint to carry it into the next week and the next month? Talk about an unbelievable student, right? She ain't no joke as a student. She's stunning, right? Because she's like appreciates what she was getting access to. That's why adaptive students are often, in my opinion, better students, right? So the sensation of space and lightness, not having everything, so you don't push your breath to your legs. Well, you can, but it's not smart. You'll irritate your diaphragm. I've done it, right? When I try to push my breath places, right? But so can I let there be a different level of inwardness? So I remember an advanced senior Iyengar teacher said to me, your awareness can be there the split second before your breath reaches there. In other words, if you can prepare the soil, right? for receiving the oxygen or the energy exchange. Don't even think about it as oxygen, it's an energy exchange, right? If you can get it so I'm ready to receive. Prana, this is some of you that train with us, and you've heard this line from me, prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. By the way, consciousness is not mental awareness, right? It's deeper than that. So I'm moving again to find my feet. I'm moving back and forth right now to change the gravity, get different inputs to my brain right now. I'm moving my spine, lifting my chest, finding my feet, right? Doing it through movement. So when I sit here, I can feel the hum of more of my body. So the quality of my breath touches more of my potential. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Can you see what a party foul it would be if you clenched your jaw right now? If you pressed your tongue too hard against the roof of your mouth? An over-gripped eyes, an over-gripped mouth, right, are impediments to the flow of prana. So you practice softening the organs of perception to stop your mind from injecting judgment into the experience. Oh my God, I hope you don't think breath is easy. It's not. Once the mind starts becoming aware of breath, whether it's through an instruction or through a practice, it's a shit show. You're gonna need to practice. And you're gonna have to lower your expectations. Low bar, clear it. Low bar, clear it, right? So the way Iyengar yoga teaches pranayama is so focused, it's intimidating. It makes it into a very complicated asana. I don't think that helps all that much, right? At least in the beginning, but it prepares my body to receive. So as long as my mind can be there, but so this idea of like what I said in the second day of Kiss My Asana tapes or whatever was that when a yogi can sustain the sensations of space and lightness in asana, they start to learn that the entire body breathes and not just the lungs. Right? So if I can't ensure space and lightness by movement, I'm going to have to figure out how to make space and lightness a different way. Right? And that's what you saw in the video with Sammy. We're helping her maintain space and lightness so she could get the quality of her breath to matter more than the quantity. All right, well, I kind of hope this was helpful, right? I'm going to stay on because the cool people stay on after hours and ask those questions because all the cool things happen after. But so I'll stay on for a while. I want you to pause again, and anyone can make a comment here in a second, but I want you to pause again and pick out 2 things or 3 things that you saw, felt, or heard that you're going to bring on. Maybe write them down. Maybe it's a feeling, I don't know. It was amazing to see Sammy again for me. Reminded me of everything I knew. and don't know. One of the things that I really want for our community is for us to honor Sammy for the right reasons. Admire her for the right reasons. Not because she's heroic or not because her life's so hard, but for what she teaches us when we get to hang out with her. Sammy does not even know what a pranayama miraculousness human being she is. She does not know. I know. And I'm going to learn. All right, everybody. Breathing and disabilities. I'll stay on for a little bit. I'm thinking we could even offer a course on this because we just started, right? But the framework is here. Namaste, everybody. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.